This is a DAP. This is an old one that is not like what we'd make now, that is on a scourge from many years ago. But a lot of people love DAPs, and that makes sense. They're beautiful, they're traditional, they're cheap. You know, they're relatively quick to make compared to a lot of our modern sheaths, and they don't use any imported or exotic materials. So, you know, prices on these are a lot more affordable than Kydex, for example. And yeah, people are generally pretty happy with the carry capability on them. You know, just being able to have a vertical carry on the belt is enough. Some people just stick it through their pants or under their belt, or, you know, all of these other things, and they're not too worried about needing retention or horizontal carry or any of these other things. So for these people, DAPs are just fine. There is one thing that I think everyone agrees is a problem on DAPs though, and that is that they have a tendency to get cut through and to stab your hand. This is a super well-known occurrence. I'm pretty sure that some of the other houses in the box, when you open your knife, it says when you're grabbing your knife, hold it at the back like this and pull it like this, you know, safety number one. And the reason for that is that when you're pulling, the thicker part of the belly here wants to come through like that and wants to cut through the waist of the blade. And similarly, when you're storing a blade like this, the tip wants to come out the back. And this is something that's just kind of accepted as a risk. People say, oh, you know, you just hold it like this and then it's fine. But the thing is, you can still cut through your sheath, and then you've got a sheath that has a big cut in it. You know, even if it doesn't hurt you, it can destroy the sheath. So when I was in Nepal last, I got together with the team and we talked about why this happened, and we figured some things out, maybe not what you would have anticipated for how this actually works. So this is a 12-inch Mutiny here. It's got a micarta handle. I love this knife. And it is right now just in a simple, just the wooden portion, so no leather on top here, right? Now, if you have a look closely, you can see that there's a seam that runs along the top, down the center there, and down the middle, down the center there. Now, when people talk about cutting through, that isn't really what happens, right? This is solid wood. You're not cutting through the wood just from doing this. What's actually happening is you're splitting it apart. Now, if you know you're pulling quite hard, you can do that. But another really common way that you can, you know, split it apart, you know, because the edge is right in line with this seam and it's a perfect little wedge shape and there's not a lot of wood there, is just to drop it. So I'm going to show you with this one here. I just give this little crack on the ground. You see that? So that's just opened up the whole way in there. And you can see the knife popping itself out the back there, right? So it looks like it's all together and you'd say, oh, it's cut through. But in reality, it's either split or cracked through the wood. And then all there is between your hand and the knife edge is a pretty thin piece of leather. At the back, I will show you on this scourge sheath because it is already happening on this one. So you can see right here, I don't know, you can maybe even feel it as well, but it's completely caved in at the back here. This is solid, and then this is like all gone. All the wood's just broken apart over and over again from the tip of this blade coming in and gouging and you know, splitting it, cracking it apart, doing all that kind of stuff. And now if the knife comes in, if I do it poorly, you can see that that is the edge, sorry, the tip putting pressure on the actual leather there. And that could cut through very easily if this knife was remotely sharp at all. So now that we've got this cracked open, let's crack it open the whole way. And let's have a little look what's actually going on inside this sheath. Okay, so we've got two parts of the sheath here. It's been carved out inside, and there's, as you can see, there's a shelf at the rear. This hasn't cracked symmetrically. You can see the seam there, and this is the seam on the other side coming down here. And basically these two halves come together, they get glued, and then that creates a cavity. But there are some problems, and the most obvious one is that there's just so little material at the front here, right? You can see this dark patch here is where the glue was, and that's like 3 millimeters of glue, if that, coming the whole way along the edge here. And the wood there is also extremely thin. So when you take into account that there's a really low amount of surface area along the edge here, that it's just being asked to be held together with glue, and that it's really thin and it's perfectly in line with the edge, you know, it's no surprise at all that whenever a kukri gets a knock, these things can, you know, crack apart at the front here and create space for the edge to move right on through, just like that. Now at the back, it's a slightly different story. So this has not actually cracked along the glue anywhere along here. So that's a sign that there is sufficient surface area, you know. Instead, it's cracked along the grain the whole way along. And you know, this would line up with the fact that it's a lot less common for tips to go through than it is for the edge to come through. Still though, you end up with this situation where the seam is in line with the tip. Part of the reason why it wouldn't necessarily happen on this mutiny is because it has quite a dropped tip. In comparison, the scourge has quite a long, pointy, straight tip, and so it doesn't follow the arc as it enters as nicely as the mutiny does, which has a very gentle curve throughout. So, you know, on your more modern service issue style blades and Panawols and Siripates that have like more distinct, less curved profiles, you're gonna run into the tip issue more. And this is a big safety thing. Like, it is so common for people to cut themselves with these sheaths. And not only is it a safety concern, it's a durability concern. And we want to make knives that last for a lifetime, you know, and the sheaths need to be just as good. Anyway, we have thought about how we can go about solving this issue without intervening too much in the traditional processes that are involved. Now, we cannot show you exactly what we're doing here because we'd like to be able to, you know, produce these cut-proof sheaths for some time without having competitors steal them. But what we can communicate is what we're basically doing, right? And what we're doing is we are increasing the strength of the wood around these joints. We are increasing the surface area of the joints to make sure that they don't crack apart easily. And most importantly, we are ensuring that the seam lines are out of alignment with the edge and tip. This more or less solves the issue. And the really important thing here is that we haven't introduced any new materials while we're doing this. We haven't introduced any new tools or processes. It's just a slight design shift. And the final result looks almost identical. Now, it is very slightly thicker at the very edges of the sheath, the front and the back, and can maybe seem a little bit more squared off instead of as round, but you would have to be a real expert to tell the difference. However, we can understand that maybe this doesn't appeal to you, in which case you can just get a Saliani sheath. So for our rubbed leather or Saliani sheaths, we are not doing this cut-proof construction. This means that we can make these sheets as thin and as fine as possible toward the edges, and you can have this more historical, more traditional construction. In a way, our traditional DAPs are already not completely historical in that they use a horizontal carry loop on them. And I think for many people that are buying these traditional DAPs, they're more interested in just having a cheap, traditional looking option that is a doable working sheath rather than having something that is completely as authentic as possible. Again, this is a difficult, kind of tricky balance we're trying to strike here. It's something that we think has worked out pretty well. Let us know what you think about it in the comments, because it's a bit of a funky one. Keep an eye out on social media. We have many more updates to go.